So, some of your players are busy and they can't make it to the session. Boo boo, sad cry, darn scheduling. Well, here are 3 fun ways to keep playing when people are missing. But before any of these tips, make sure that you discuss this with your players. Some may want to wait until everyone is there, which can be really unfortunate if one person keeps being busy. If people want to be there because they have massive cases of FOMO, fear of missing out, and you want to accommodate them, then, well, you could always just postpone it. Otherwise, my first tip is to run a side quest. Whether it's a little one-session story that carries on from the previous session, or something else entirely, a side quest can be super fun. It can allow your remaining players to have the spotlight all for themselves for the session, and, potentially, get things done that they otherwise couldn't. Is one of your player characters secretly evil, or has a lot of secrets that they keep? Well, you can run a single side quest session with that being the focus. And don't feel like you can't run a session for just one player. The 2 of you can run through backstory stuff or play out an important task that they need to do. You could have them meet with people in secret, break away and deal with an NPC that they couldn't confront with everyone else there. But if you think it wouldn't make sense to have a side quest right now, you can absolutely make it make sense. For example, if the previous session ended with them all being in a dungeon together, well, when the rest of the group are tending to their wounds, aka attending an IRL wedding, the remaining players kept playing, and in their curiosity they found a secret side quest door. Beyond the door, there could be anything. Maybe your goblin-infested cave has a room with a statue where they hang their clothes on, but upon this statue is a plaque with a riddle to solve, and once it's solved, you find a 5-room dungeon with undead warriors and ancient traps. If you don't want to slot a side quest into the middle of a campaign, well, the side quest could take place in a flashback or flash forward, so the continuity of the campaign doesn't have to be tampered with. Or tell a different story in the same world. While you could just run a one-shot, and in fact, you can have that for free. You can just run a one-shot. By doing this, you can connect this solo story into the story you're telling and enhance the campaign. The most significant example that I can think of, at least in my games, was when I introduced the next group of super bad villains in the campaign by having the players play them in a one-shot. However, important step, I told them, you're going to have a one-shot where you're going to play as villains in this world from the long past. Then, after getting to play these absolute monsters and use their grim abilities on good people, they then saw one of them in the next session and lost their minds knowing what they did in the session and what those bad guys can do to them. But you can do anything. You can have the players play as a group of goblins that find a weird artifact in a cave. And then, in the next session, you then find a room in a cave with those exact same goblins as corpses as an eldritch monster bursts out of that artifact. You could play as a group of prisoners in a cart to the far north that fight for their freedom. And then, the session ends with them seeing a dark fog heading southwards, which the player characters see in the next campaign session. By the way, all those examples I've done in my game, and it was super fun. I cannot recommend doing this enough. I think it's super cool because you can flesh out the world without having to drag the player characters away from their own story. And you can let your players take part in the history of your world, rather than just dumping a bunch of lore on them in session. Have them live the lore instead. And finally, if not all of your players can make it, then play something else. When there's not a whole group looking at you to run the next session of the campaign, it can be a perfect time to run a one-shot in a system that you're not entirely aware of, in a more low-pressure environment. I've done this with Call of Cthulhu, Cyborg, and we had an absolute blast. It wasn't at the same time, we didn't run them simultaneously, but still, blast. If your players are concerned that they won't enjoy it, or they're under some really weird idea that D&D is the only game worth playing, it's not, then ask them to give it a chance. I've had players who were glued to the vanilla until they came out pumping with adrenaline after a spooky journey through the Lovecraft mythos. And if you'd rather skip the prep because you have a whole campaign to run, you can use games like Everyone is John, Goblin Quest, and Honey Heist to have a super funny game night with friends. And if no one can make it but you're still hankering for some tabletop goodness, then check out some solo RPGs. In terms of solo RPG recommendations, my favourite one has to be 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, where you get to tell the story of a character from history that you make up getting to grips with the clutches of vampirism over decades of time. But there are so many solo RPGs that you can play. For example, there's a game called Colossal, which is perfect if you love fantasy, exploration, building a story, and they've just released a dungeon variant, notorious for a sci-fi bounty hunting fix, or even Grotten if you like dungeon crawls. If not all of your players can come, don't worry about it. As someone who's just run a game where only 2 out of the 5 players in the campaign could actually show up to the session, you can still treat your players and yourself to a super fun game night. And the best part is, it's not really the campaign, so you can relax a bit more. All you need to do is consider the options outside the usual routine, and then just meet up next time and continue the campaign. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, leave a like, leave a comment, and click the video on screen to see some other games to play for that emergency one-shot, or click the other video on screen to help improve your improv during the session. I love you all, and I'll see you next Saturday.